Alright guys, these are the definitive hot tips for Mathematical Methods CAS Units 3 and 4. So listen up and let's go with this. General advice for both examinations. Now, you need to be careful to answer questions to the required degree of accuracy. If a question asks for an exact answer, then a decimal approximation, that is, of an irrational number for which the decimal string to the right of the decimal point does not terminate, that is the definition of an irrational number, that would not be acceptable because that's not exact. Okay, exact answers are required as the default position, and exact answers written in decimal form are acceptable. E.g., a half could be written as 0.5. That is exact. Even though that is a decimal number, that is exact. Do you get that? So please give exact answers unless otherwise instructed. Alright, that is the safe position. Number 3. When an instruction to use calculus is stated for a question, then an appropriate derivative or antiderivative must be shown. Yes? Alright, number 4, make it very clear where your final answer is. That is very important. Put a box around it or highlight it very clearly. The examiners are complaining that they don't know where students' final answers are. It makes it very difficult for them, particularly if you've got the road to nowhere all over the page and they can't figure out what you're doing, no offence. Number 5, read how many marks a question is worth before starting the answer. That is really important. The number of marks that a question is worth determines your approach and the level of detail you require, okay? So please do that, guys. Number 6, always reread a question before leaving it to make sure you have answered exactly what is required. Okay, that an exact answer is in fact exact, or that an approximate level of accuracy has been given for a decimal approximation. That's what you need to do before checking out of every question on that paper, guys. Alright, number 7. Be careful to simplify fractions down to an appropriately simple form. E.g., 16 over 2 would be, in my view, from what examiners have said at the sessions that I've been to, would be unacceptable. You would have to give 8 as the answer. And similarly, 2 over 16 wouldn't be much good either. You'd have to give 1 over 8. Okay, you get that? Very good. Now, graphs. Number 8, graphs. This is an area where a lot of students fall short. They just lack the appropriate level of attention to detail. So let me go through it with you, and hopefully I can help you with this. Be sure to label graphs carefully. Coordinates for intercepts and stationary points, equations for asymptotes. Pay attention to detail when you're sketching graphs. Put some measure of scale on both the vertical and the horizontal axes. You know what I mean by that? You've got to have some little notches with some numbers on them, okay? Not just a wide open pasture with nothing on it. It's not very acceptable. Alright, label each axis properly with the name of what you are sketching, the symbol that you are using, and the unit of what you are sketching. For example, volume, then in brackets, V, comma, cubic meters, close bracket, something like that, yes? What else have I got here? Sketch the graph in pencil. Yes, don't do it in pen, because mistakes in pen cannot be erased, guys, so do them in pencil. What else have we got here? Sketch asymptotes as dotted lines. Yes, as dotted lines, and label the equation of the asymptote. If an asymptote coincides with the x or the y axis, draw it in a different colour or a thicker pen or something so that it can be clearly seen. That's really important. Watch asymptotic behaviour very carefully. Do not allow your graph to run parallel to, or even worse, swing back out away from the asymptote. It must approach the asymptote at all times. And in that context, please take a ruler into the exam to ensure that your graph's asymptotic behaviour can be drawn correctly. Don't leave it to the whims of freehand and nervous energy when you're in the exam. Relax as much as possible before going into the exam and refuse to stress. Stress will just destroy your peace of mind, turn the whole experience into a negative one, and it will compromise your mind and shut it down just at the time when you need it most, okay? You know all that, but you must just refuse to give in to stress. You've worked hard all year and you deserve to succeed, so why shoot yourself in the foot at the last minute? You just don't need that, okay? Yes, you need to get good quality rest the night before the exam, needless to say, and don't stay up too late. If you haven't got it by the night before the exam, then just forget it, okay? And go to bed and have a good rest. Right, notes pages. Ensure that your bound reference notes are well prepared, and I would suggest organised into topic areas. Ensure that your bound reference obeys all the rules, whatever they may be at the time. I know you're not supposed to have tabs. I don't think you're allowed to have fold-out pages. You better check that. And you're not allowed to have any pages that can be easily detached, all right? It is probably better to work process, that should say steps, I'm very sorry, rather than specific examples of questions. However, some worked examples can certainly be of benefit in your bound notes, all right? It's a good idea to include steps for your CAS handheld device for certain operations. That would be a very, very good thing. Now, here's some specific strategies for exam 1. Please use the reading time to plan an approach to the paper. Read every question carefully and decide which one to do first. You don't have to do them in numerical order, guys. It would be a great idea just to start on the one that you feel the most confidence with, okay? And that gives you a great psychological edge. Okay, momentum can be built early in the exam by completing the questions which you are the most comfortable with, yes. All right, this is very important, this one. Please do not over-engage with the answer to a question, particularly if it's not worth a lot of marks. Get to the answer and get out of there. Don't pretty things up too much. Don't expand things out too much just for the sake of it. This just wastes your time and increases the chances of you getting the final answer wrong. And it would be a great tragedy if you did have it right and then you over-engaged with it and then did something wrong and then you lose your answer mark. So that's just not something you should be doing. Strategies for exam 2, guys. Now, use the reading time to carefully plan an approach to the paper. Try to answer 5 multiple choice questions in your head if you can. I would highly recommend that. And remember the answers, because reading time is part of the exam time and it can get you off to a flying start if you're able to do that with selected questions that lend themselves to that process in your head, okay? There's no penalty for an incorrect answer in multiple choice questions. Answer every question. Don't leave any out. If you've left a question unanswered for any reason at the time, it's a bit hard, or you're starting to melt down and you just can't figure it out or whatever else, you need to go somewhere else, put an asterisk beside it and then come back to it at the end before the pens down call at the end of the paper. All right? You must not get bogged down on any question, but you must answer every multiple choice question in your own interests, ladies and gentlemen. Every multiple choice question must be answered, okay? Now, many students take too long on the multiple choice section and don't leave enough time for the extended answers. Please don't fall into this trap. You can only take a half an hour for the multiple choice section, in my view. After that, leave it and go on to the extended response section without delay. Come back to the multiple choice section later, but you need to avoid the psychology of panic. A half an hour is where you should leave it and get out of there, particularly if you've managed to answer 5 questions in reading time. That's a great strategy in my view. With multiple choice questions, work out why the distractor options are incorrect before you leave that question. After you've picked the correct answer, work out why the others are incorrect. Have a good look at them. Confirm that they are incorrect before you finally select the correct option. The answers can be very, very similar, and in that sense they're very, very tricky. It's like they're camouflaged or something. They're so similar you can go square-eyed trying to figure out which one is the actual right answer if you're not careful. It's very easy to select the wrong one. So even though you've only got a minute and a half for every question, I highly recommend that after you pick the right question, just have a look at the other 4 and work out, yes, that's wrong, yes, that's wrong, yes, that's wrong, etc. before you go on, okay? All right, how are you going with all this? I hope you're getting something out of it. Sometimes it helps to eliminate responses that you think are incorrect, and then to focus on the remaining ones to decide which ones are likely to be correct. That's in the multiple choice, of course. Sometimes you can look for the odd man out as being the correct option. E.g., 4 out of the 5 options might have a graph which is continually increasing, whereas the 5th one might have a graph which is continually decreasing. This can be a good indication as to why the correct option might be the odd man out, and then that would warrant further investigation to hone in on that one and have a good look at it. Multiple choice questions generally require only 1 or 2 steps and are not designed to be lengthy or too tricky. However, with the advent of CAS, they can be very tricky, particularly towards the end of the multiple choice section. They've been putting in some absolute doozies, guys, so you've got to be ready for it, okay? Assessors will read everything that is written and they will award marks appropriately. So if you believe that you've got wrong work there, you've made a mistake, simply place a diagonal line through the incorrect work and then replace it with the correct work. Write in pen, but if you really insist on writing in pencil, don't rub out. Because you might be rubbing out valuable marks. Do not put a line through any work, however, unless you have replaced it with something better. Okay, when you've replaced it with something better, then you can put a line through it if you want to, but not until. If 2 conflicting versions of the work are presented, even if one of them is completely correct, you will lose a mark, okay? Because you've got 2 conflicting versions of it there, and the examiner doesn't know which one you mean. Okay, try to avoid getting bogged down on any particular part of a question. Oh yes, that's so important. If you find you are spending too much time on a question, leave it. Put an asterisk near it and move on to the next one. If you have time at the end, you can always come back to the unanswered questions. Yes, guys? Okay. When a question says to show that something or other, then you can use this information to progress through to the next stage of the question, even if you cannot complete the show that part. Alright, now I'm going to leave it there, and I'll continue on with this exciting video in a part 2, okay, with the rest of it. Alright,